Call the meeting to order and ask for a roll call.
Blunier.
Here.
Leach.
Here.
Lehman.
Here.
Menold.
Here.
Newman.
Here.
Parrott.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Ask you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a public hearing tonight on the proposed amendment to the exterior boundaries of the Village of Morton's Business District plat to include 111 East Jefferson and 225 East Jefferson Street. Is there anyone that'd like to make a comment? If not, we'll close that hearing. Public comments. Anyone for public comments? Clark, you got anything to say tonight?
Let me go first. Good evening, everyone. Leanne Brown with the Morton Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development Council. A few updates as we keep moving through Roaring Pumpkins and all that jazz. It's now right around the corner. So here we are to school back in session. And so that means Libby's, if you've seen the activity, pumpkins are coming in. So Libby's is starting to produce and can maybe smell it in the air. And so that means our fun time is right around the corner. So a couple notes on that. Our traditional festival donuts in partnership with Ron's Bakery, a local bakery out of Washington. You can pre-order your traditional festival donuts. So on our online store, visit the mortonpumpkinfestival.org website and you can get your donuts pre-ordered, and then you can select the date you want to pick them up, September 8th through the 11th at our office. Reverse Parade. We are hosting this in partnership with the VFW off of Veterans. Doug Scholl is our parade marshal this year, and he was in our office again today, just beyond excited to be representing our community and all that he's done for and with our community. And so he was getting excited about that, but still have room. So if businesses or organizations want to be a part of that and decorate a float, then we'll have the floats on display for vehicles to drive through and enjoy the floats and wave to Doug Scholl and others on that reverse parade. We're also doing a Got Jazzed. So residents and businesses can get jazzed up by decorating their storefronts, porches, entryways. We even have boxes that you can order to decorate in partnership with Sucre, so you can shop local. And then you can sign up to be judged, whether you're a resident or a business. Businesses will be awarded a $400 marketing package along with and when I say giant, I mean giant pumpkin that was fabricated from Morton Industries. And it is almost 5 foot tall, at least about 4 foot wide, just an incredible pumpkin that business that receives the top winner of all the judging will get to keep that pumpkin for a year to display. So that's a pretty cool one. And then our residents will win a chamber check to shop local and enjoy their celebration. Floral Designs, this Saturday, Floral Designs will be celebrating 25 years in business. So they'll be doing an open house on Saturday. So we are excited to help them celebrate 25 years. And then Fourth Fridays, our last one for the season, is around the corner as well. Friday, August 28th is Fourth Fridays, 5 to 8 throughout downtown and online. Last Fourth Fridays was great. A lot of people were safely out and about, walking the streets, biking downtown, enjoying some dinner outside. So hopefully weather will be nice again and come out and enjoy Fourth Fridays. So that's all I had, unless anybody has any questions. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Leanne. Tonight's consent agenda is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting, August 3rd, 2020, and the approval of the bills.
I move to approve.
Second.
Any comments? Call the roll.
Blunier,
Yes.
Leach.
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Mennel,
Yes.
Newman,
Yes.
Parrot.
Yes.
Motion passes.
I have nothing tonight. Village Clerk?
Uh, Nothing tonight other than just to mention the next meeting will be on September 8th, which is a Tuesday because of Labor Day.
Okay.
That's all I have tonight.
Village Administrator?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Chief of Police?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you. Corporation Counsel?
Two items tonight, Your Honor. The first is ordinance number 21-14, which is an ordinance authorizing the vacation of the entirety of Harrison Street that adjoins lots 27 through and including 32, and the entirety of the east-west alley that adjoins lots 27 through and including 37, and Marshall and Ackerman's addition to the Village of Morton.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any comments? Call the roll.
Leach.
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Mennel,
Yes.
Newman,
Yes.
Parrot.
Yes.
Blunier.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next item I have tonight, Your Honor, is ordinance number 21-16, which is an ordinance extending temporary regulations for outdoor dining and drinking areas.
I move approval. Second.
Just a bit of context on this one. We previously adopted regulations during the period of the Restore Illinois plan where outdoor dining and drinking was the only permitted service, and those regulations had a sunset to them, so we've extended the sunset to those regulations through the end of the year, and we've removed some of the restrictions that applied during the period of time when you weren't permitted to be inside the establishments, only outside. And we've adjusted the fees. We had a set fee previously. We've made the fee a prorated fee for the portion of the year in which you have the license.
Any questions or comments?
Yes, I have one, Your Honor. And I've had the opportunity to speak with some of you on this as well, but it was brought to some of our attention that one business in town in particular was reaching out and trying an effort to try to see a way that they could serve alcohol within their premise, but the way that their property is designed, they would have to step foot on the sidewalk within a couple feet. The one in question that I'm discussing is KIP 208, and in discussion with her, I talked to her at length and looking at some different opportunities, if there's ways to stay within how the ordinance is currently written, and essentially adjust kind of her layout of her home, such as whether it's a gate or if it's going out throughout the back of the home. And she's willing, by all means, to show anyone who'd like to come by to show you, the difficulties she would have to run into for that. But there would be an expense out of pocket. And of course, during these times, as you can imagine, people aren't trying to find ways to increase expenses, but instead to decrease and also find new ways for revenue. It's been very difficult for a lot of these smaller businesses, such as Chem 208. And in doing so, I talked to some of you, and I guess I don't want to mention their names unless they felt the right to talk about it. But some of the issues that I have, I guess the concerns that I found were that the potential that someone could steal alcohol, or that a customer could take that alcohol, the alcoholic beverage, maybe further than the premise of the business. So essentially, go down a half block or a block, or just essentially be off property with the alcoholic beverage. Those were just a couple of the concerns. And so essentially, I guess my question is for everyone as far as discussion this evening is to see if concerns that you have are also solutions for it. One solution that me and some others have thought about was, what if we just made it where it was just within a couple feet of the business, and so essentially they could go within, say, 2 foot. Could be an example of the perimeters of the business, and it's employees only, and make it very specific. And so another person I had thought of, thought their business, their layout, because they're looking at making some changes with Sam Parrott and bosses out front. Of course, they have a lot wider sidewalk, so it's a little bit easier for his situation. However, in discussion with him, he had brought out that it was his understanding that he that already had the ability to walk in a portion of what was owned by the village with an alcoholic beverage. I don't know that. I guess that's a conversation as well. Someone could also maybe shed some light on, but there is a portion for him to get from that entryway out to those tables. He would actually be on village property for a very small bit, but there is a portion. And so my thought process as well is, it makes complete sense for an employee in that particular situation to be able to bring the beverage and have strict rules the business should, and also the ordinance as well, that this is employees only. And I guess I also would like to see if there's a way that we can make a one-size-fits-all as well. And so that's the complication of it all. Something that also work for Chem 208, but something also would be the same, and it'd work for Seasons and another business, of course, that they had a similar situation that they were trying to accommodate. So I guess that's the conversation to have this evening. If there's anyone to have any additions or questions or concerns.
During a previous meeting, we amended the Class I, is it? That it allows for the movement of alcohol on a public sidewalk. I think we could have some discussion on the fact that in front of Kemp 208, there is a 5-foot sidewalk and probably 3-foot boulevard.
Yeah, I would say about 3.
But the only concern I would have would be ADA at that point, as to whether, you could walk out of the gated area at the front and move to, say, alongside somewhere. I don't know what the board's thoughts are on that, but if she were to attain a Class I license, perhaps that could be possible. I don't know.
Make sure I understand correctly. What you're wanting to do is for them to be able to come out, the servers, not the patrons, the actual employees, to be able to bring alcohol out of the gate to their outside dining area, which I understand is at the side there. Is that correct? Is that correct? So patrons wouldn't be carrying alcohol out of the gated fenced off area. It would just be the server essentially crossing the sidewalk around to the side. Is that
Correct. Kathy with Chem 208 and Sam with Seasons and with Bastas both stated that they would make specific rules that patrons would not be able to bring, let's say, if they wanted to go to inside seating for some reason, they would not have the right to be able to stand up and to walk on that public property. It'd be for employees only.
Well, I don't think Sam has an issue because his sidewalk is wider though. Is that correct? Because like you said, it's not the entire sidewalk isn't blocked off with alcohol, but we have to have at least 5 foot clear for the ADA that can't be set aside essentially for outdoor dining or outdoor whatever. But that 5 foot has to stay clear. Where in the case of Kemp's, they only have 5 foot, so there's no ability to mark off a portion of that to be able to, serve alcohol out in the sidewalk area. But
And one thing you need to keep in mind is, unbeknownst to me until we had this discussion with Sam Parrott, there's probably 6 feet in front of his building is actually his property. He showed us the survey stakes in one end of it. We didn't have him have it surveyed beyond that, but it appears that like 6 feet of that property is already his. So the tables area where the tables are set up currently is actually on his property. But they would still have to walk because the tables come like right to the end of it. So
Okay.
they would still have to stand and walk on the sidewalk, but like you said, it's probably another 8 to 10 feet beyond that to the curb. I just don't know about ADA is the only concern I would have.
I guess either way, I don't have an issue with either case if Sam does need it and sounds like primarily for
Kathy.
Kemp's. I don't have an issue of the servers crossing outside the boundary to get to the other seating area. I wouldn't support patrons being able to take their beverage from one area and walk to
Oh,
the
for
other.
sure,
I
yeah.
think there's concerns with people wandering down the street and that kind of thing. We don't want, but I guess I don't have an issue with it. But I think, and Pat, this would be a completely separate ordinance. We would want to.
It depends on whether he wants this to be a temporary accommodation or a permanent accommodation. If it was temporary, it could be implemented into this ordinance. If it's to be a new permanent regulation, it would need to be an ordinance on its own.
I think more temporary, in my opinion,
And
more
it-
a temporary thing would.
It could even be done as as supplementing this ordinance at the next meeting. I don't have language ready
Well, that's
to this
what I
issue
mean.
tonight.
Like right now, it's like we can't vote on something now because you don't have the language and.
And my suggestion would be that this is something I can bring back to you at your next meeting, where you could adopt that. In the absence of this ordinance being prepared to accomplish that end tonight, I would suggest adopting this ordinance allows for the continued accommodation of your temporary, the existing temporary outdoor drinking and dining areas, and then we can address this specific concern on the sidewalk travel at your next meeting. The other issue, which I'm not, is that would create a need, just making sure that the business is will accommodate the requirements of ordinance. There'd have to be a separate hostess at the entrance to the temporary drinking area. So it would seemingly create a new employee, or an additional employee they'd have to have, because we require you to have somebody at the entrance, the outdoor drinking and dining area. So I don't know if that affects this particular restaurant owner's plans, but creating that second temporary dining area, if there's going to be drinking there, we require you to have a server, essentially your hostess, there as well. So that might be something we just want to verify. Just if we only have one who needs it, and
Well, my understanding is there wouldn't be a new separate drinking area. It would be the area that they already have outside, correct?
Correct. To my understanding, yes.
That they dining outside, but they just couldn't get the alcohol from
They
one
can't.
spot
They can't.
to the other.
Yeah, that was their issue.
Is
Is they couldn't take the alcohol from one place to another. So they just figured it was
She-
better not to pursue.
She currently has a license for alcohol consumption within the gated area of her property. She does not have anything going
Okay.
outside the gated area currently. And she and I talked about that at one time, but she said it would be too hard to manage having a non-alcoholic section versus an alcoholic section.
I heard the same
And one of your concerns you stated on the Class I, it states they can only be served alcohol if they're seated at a table, and that it's up to the business to monitor and regulate that the alcohol is not removed from that area.
Yes.
So could this issue be resolved by them having a gate on the north fence? So I'm assuming their area in question is to the north side of their outside seating.
So to my understanding, that's a great question. To my understanding, and I don't want to take words from her, but to my understanding, what the concern would be is, in order to do that, you'd have to do a few different things. One, to make it look where it looks congruent, like it looks like it matches. I can't remember if she has brick there, or if she has if it's concrete, or if it's cobblestone, but it's whatever type of material it is. You'd have to, of course, take out that portion of the landscaping, redo the edging, put custom the gate, and then also put in the new pathway. Where in this would just be a way to try to help a business in a tough time as well, to make it where it's making a small fix, where it's nothing unreasonable, not trying to do anything reasonable, something that could save some cost too,
Do
some
they
expense.
currently now have outside dining in that area?
They have in that fence they do.
No, I know, in the front.
Yep.
But where the area in question, is that currently being used, or that's something they want to?
They decided not to. She decided not to because she thought it would be too difficult to regulate, to have it, because she knew about this ordinance that's
But they're wanting
currently
to
restricts her.
expand. They're wanting to expand.
Yes, she'd be willing. She would have that desire to expand, which I think would be a positive thing for everyone involved.
So that area that's to the northeast of the building, or on the northeast side, there's a tent out there and chairs? Is
She
that
does
right?
not have a tent there.
Okay, does she have chairs and table?
She has not invested in that yet because she essentially felt like the restriction currently in place would not allow her to do so.
Okay, so the question I would ask is that if she were to put a tent and tables and fence around that, would she also then take the food out the front and take it that over to that area?
To my knowledge, there's not. Is there anything? And someone correct me. Is there anything against her walking on the sidewalk with food at this particular time?
No.
I'm just asking.
Yeah. So she would. Yes, the goal would be to still walk out
All right.
that area with food and drink, which.
So if she were to actually put a gate in, though, it would be easier and quicker to go that direction, it would seem like, rather than just going out the front gate.
What I would recommend, if that's something of your concern, is maybe she had offered this to show anyone, but it sounds like it's easier said than done, is what I'm trying to say.
Right, but I'm going to guess if you invest in a tent and tables and chairs, is the gate a lot more expensive than that as well?
She probably would not do the tent. She would probably make it more like a, and this is where as well to go back to, I guess, Nate would have to discuss this more. It sounds like she'd want to do a longer term thing, not just a short term thing, if she was going to invest in the money. So essentially, and by all means, we can look at it both ways. I'm not saying that we can't and talk to her about that. But if she was going to invest in permanent seating, I would think that she would want to, if she's going to invest the money, to make it more as long term.
And then going along with that, then, I mean, we've only got another 2 months at most of outdoor eating without a tent because the temperature. I guess my question is that can you bring a drawing as well so that we understand what's going to happen? Because we could all be talking and maybe not quite understand. I would prefer that if we're going to vote on something, to actually be able to see where's the area going to be and what, because I guess I have a hard time comprehending how can you have permanent tables and chairs but no overhead protection. It would seem like you would have to invest in that as well to make it worthwhile. Anyway, but I guess I'd like to see or understand what is it that she's actually willing to do before we make a change.
I have a question and a comment as well on this. I think Steve is onto something. If there was just a plan of what she intends to do, and then I'd like to actually see a strategic plan on how they're going to handle customers, and if there's a problem customer, or if someone has too much and they walk down the sidewalk, how will they handle that? Do they have people in place? Do they have a plan of action to deal with it? So my second question is, we have outdoor dining and drinking now because of this situation we're facing with COVID-19, but if it works out and it helps the businesses in the future, why would we not allow that in the future, even if there's not COVID-19? And if that would be the case, then I think somebody like the owner of that restaurant would be more likely to do something permanent and spend a little extra money because they can see themselves doing it every summer, and it might actually revitalize the downtown. So I'd like to throw that out there.
And they have outside seating. They've had for a long time out front.
But extended.
So yeah, I think they should bring us a plan, a proposal of what their plan is, and then we can.
I would be more likely to vote on a temporary variance or whatever, what you call that, Pat, a temporary thing. Regulation. And if business goes well and they bring in more revenue, then they can spend a portion of that revenue to make a gate and not have to use a sidewalk. So it's kind of a segue into what they're trying to do to see if it really will pay off for them.
I think that's a great idea.
But they need to kind of commit to, if this works out, then we're going to put a little money into this, and then we can utilize it every summer. So.
From a temporary standpoint, does that make everyone? Does anyone else see any concerns from a temporary standpoint? If that's the direction we would go.
With a plan and a.
Yeah, of course, having a very specific plan, very specific. Not making sure that's not any sort of patron, but only an employee.
Well, and if you remember, under the Class I, it does not require a fence. So this would be an unfenced area along the side, so.
Well, I think I love your point, Rod, Trustee Blunier, about extending this out farther. Maybe next summer, maybe this whole thing's behind us, but next summer the outdoor dining works so good this summer, maybe we do it next summer. But I think the way these ordinances are set up, specifically not fenced in, not allowed, and I think we wanted to get, or at least my intention was kind of the quick fix. Let's get patrons into restaurants now, versus having, so the businesses didn't have to invest that large chunk of money in a difficult time. But I think the nature of these, the way they are now, being temporary, but then, like you said, hey, if this goes well, there's no reason some of these temporary ones can't be cleaned up a little bit and become permanent.
Point of clarification, I think Julie, you mentioned that the current temporary ordinance requires that a hostess be present in that area.
Pat
I said that.
You said that. Oh,
I thought
sorry.
on the Class I didn't realize that that under a Class I that you had to have someone out there.
And I
think
may
under
miss-
the Class E,
Okay, I may have misspoke.
So
Where
that
the
may not
bars-
necessarily be the case.
We certainly require the bars, at a point of ingress and egress to the bars, there will be a hostess.
Yes.
To monitor both occupancy, so that people aren't seated or packed into the area at an occupancy level that's larger than what our fire chief had implemented through this ordinance. And second, to control alcohol in and out. And it was my recollection that applied to both outdoor classes, but I can't say I checked that while we were talking, and that my recollection's certain, and it's Julie's that only applies to bars. So I can verify that and get back to you with confirmation one way or the other.
So, I guess, yeah, if it doesn't, then this area, which is detached from their existing outdoor dining area, would not be watched very carefully. I mean, if you're talking about having to walk out front, out the gate, and around the side. I agree with Trustee Blunier and Trustee Leach. I think we need to see a plan, or they need to present a plan to see how that would work.
I think you have to also remember that we're talking about a restaurant, so they're gonna have to be serving food.
Yes.
They can't just sit there and have a drink all night. So if they're gonna have that added area, it's gonna have to be for serving food.
Yeah, the way this reads, Pat, this section here that's part of the current ordinance, the businesses shall provide a hostess or other employee at the entrance to the outdoor dining or drinking area to regulate access of patrons, ensure occupancy does not exceed. So I assume that if we pass it tonight, that stays in there.
Yeah, and I'm doing my best to get you an answer now to that question presented, and bear with me a moment. I think I have it at my fingertips, or will shortly, but
And that hostess could also serve.
It's on the second page of this ordinance.
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm just trying to place that. This ordinance modifies the old, so I'm trying to pull the old ordinance up because within the old ordinance there's a couple different sections on who specific regulations applied to. Yeah, that regulation actually applies to any temporary outdoor drinking area, whether it's a Class E or Class I. So yes, that would apply to this temporary one. It doesn't apply to the existing fenced-in area at Kemp's, because that's not a temporary, that was a previously permitted space. But anything temporary, they have to have a hostess or another employee there essentially at the entrance.
And that hostess or employee could also serve.
Ordinance
It doesn't
prohibit
it.
that.
Right. So in the case of Kemp's, and again, I'm not familiar with what kind of barrier there is next to that fence, but is it possible for them to serve across that fence? In other words, you've got a hostess out in that area anyway that has to be there during hours of business. So, I mean, I would think they'd be able to make that work, unless there's some big wall of a few feet where they can't reach over it.
I think they're talking about the fence taking up 2 or 3 parking spots on the blacktop on the right-hand side of Kemp. And that fence is there.
That was my question. Are we talking about the south or the north?
When I
The
talked
north
to
is
her-
all grass, so now I'm hearing temporary permanent. This would be the only one in town that would be on grass to the north, which is fine. But then to me, that's temporary. There is drainage issues too between both them and Shaftnet that they're both aware of also. So just a caution, if you do permanent, we're gonna have to look at that a little bit. You know what I mean?
When I talked to her the last time, it was, I think we had discussed, instead of doing it on the grass, doing it on 2 or 3 parking
lot,
spots.
which
on the
everyone in
pavement.
town's done
So the
that.
chairs would sit level and,
So that's on the south side.
right. That was my understanding. So again, it comes back to the plan. If she wants to come up.
Plan from the owner, or the operators.
No, that's fair. And
We've been reasonable with all of them, so.
That's fair. Tonight, I guess the more or less the conversation. And I apologize. Didn't mean to sound like maybe it sounded like I'm being unprepared. I just more or less as a conversation, more or less to find out concerns and if there is even openness, for this. So it sounds like there sounds like for the most part we're open, but we just need to make sure we have a better understanding of the plan, and obviously work with Pat on the language. Does that sound about right with everyone? Okay.
We're trying to make them all successful.
I would think their success would be a benefit to us as well.
Yes.
I have a question for the police chief. By and large, has this worked out pretty well for you?
We've had very little problems with the temporaries. Very little problems. Initially, we had a few issues, but we tried to get on those right away just to prevent further problems. And yeah, we've been worked very well so far.
Good.
Okay, any other comments? Call the roll.
Lehman,
Yes.
Menold,
Yes.
Newman,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
Blunier,
Yes.
Leach.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Director of Public Works.
2 items tonight, Your Honor. First, I'd like to ask for approval of proposal from Keach Architectural Design Incorporated for design services for the Village Hall Lobby Improvements Project in the amount of $21,725.
We have a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Just a quick summary. Obviously, this is the next step. We spent some monies. I sent all of you an email that we budgeted $300,000 in the latest appropriations. That would include everything. The latest with the improvements is a budget of $200, excluding the design. Obviously, this project, we want to make it functional for customers, but the main intent is to improve safety and security, especially with COVID too now. This will secure staff, from obviously the security issues that we all know of, but also it'll help with even the latest with COVID and stuff. So we've discussed it for some time. I think I emailed you guys, or I know I did the plan. Hopefully you got a chance to see that. I have it here. But this would be that next step in the process to basically put together construction documents.
Any comments? If not, call the roll.
Menold,
Yes.
Newman,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
Blunier,
Yes.
Leach.
Yes.
Lehman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next is item B, in front of you, Resolution 06-21. This is a resolution authorizing intergovernmental agreement regarding Ulrich Nature Preserve site improvements.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have some comments, Craig.
Yeah, this is basically just an agreement similar to the school. Been working with Joel. This is where basically we worked on the property exchange. This is kind of separate, but in working with Joel, he's paid for the engineering, which is actually the same engineer that we use. We just saw it as mutual benefit here. It's the end of our road. This is what we do for a living, that we'd provide the oversight, no cost. And then we're doing in the agreement a little bit of work. So there's no street light at the end, so we're going to take care of the 2 street lights and the directional boring. He's going to pay for the wiring, and then our water guys are going to install the fountain as provided by Joel, and then they'll reimburse us for labor for that. But essentially, all the cost is on the park district. We'll just work with Joel and oversee it. And then we've got some other items. We always plan for a phase 2 as budgeted on miscellaneous concrete. So we got some items there in the 50 to 100,000 range when we bid that out of our work too. So trying to work together again to hopefully have a few more items there and lower the cost to the taxpayers, the goal. And by this, I think we'll get a lot of interest from reputable contractors, especially here in Morton. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any other comments? Call the roll.
Newman.
Yes.
Parrot.
Yes.
Blunier.
Yes.
Leach.
Yes.
Lehman.
Yes.
Menold.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. Trustee Leach.
Yes, one item tonight, Your Honor. I'd like to move approval of ordinance 21-15, an ordinance approving an alteration in the exterior boundary of the Morton Business District.
I'll second that.
Any comments?
As you know, this would include the item that I call Church Square, and then the house immediately to the west of it, because the business district has to be contiguous. Did I say that word right?
Mm-hmm.
Phew. Man.
I wouldn't have, so I knew it sounded right.
Anyway, it has to be contiguous, and so the house needs to come in for that to be contiguous, and so the real reason is to get Church Square into the business district, which then would allow us someday in the future to maybe expend funds to do some type of improvement there.
And I will add that the owner of the house actually contacted me last week because she thought they were in the business district and she was curious about getting a building improvement grant because that's a Airbnb property. And so she was rather pleased to find out that this was already in the process because she was wanting to know how she would go about getting added to the business district. So
Boy, I did two things right.
yes, right.
Yeah.
That's a first.
You got lucky. You got lucky.
Not saying it was planned.
So any other comments? Call the roll.
Parrot.
Yes.
Blunier.
Yes.
Leach.
Yes.
Lehman.
Yes.
Menold.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Any other trustees have anything tonight? If not, we do need a closed session.
Closed session is requested tonight for the purpose of discussing collective negotiating matters between the village and its employees or their representatives per 5 ILCS 120/2C2.
Thank you. If we could have a motion to move.
So
closed
moved.
session.
Second.
Call the roll.
Blunier.
Yes.
Leach.
Yes.
Lehman.
Yes.
Menold.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Parrot.
Yes.